Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our ordinary meeting of Council, 19th of September 2023. As the meeting chair, I give my consent for this ordinary council meeting to be streamed live, recorded and published online. Anyone who is invited to read out a question or make a submission will be recorded, and their voice, image and contents will form part of that live stream and recording. The chair and/or CEO have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed appropriate. That may include where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. The live stream will stop prior to the closed section of the meeting and will recommence for the conclusion of the meeting. The public is able to view this live stream via our website at www.pyrenees.vic.gov.au. Should technical issues prevent the continuation of the live stream, the meeting will continue as long as a quorum can be maintained, and where possible, a recording of the meeting will be published on Council's website. Where a quorum cannot be maintained, the meeting will be adjourned until the issue is resolved, or the meeting postponed to another time and date in accordance with Council's governance rules. Please stand for the opening prayer. Heavenly Father, we ask you to give your blessing to this council, direct and prosper its deliberations to the advancement of your glory and the true welfare of the people of the Pyrenees Shire. Amen. We acknowledge the people past and present of the Wadawurrung, Dja Dja Wurrung, Eastern Maar and Watchabollock tribes, whose land forms the Pyrenees Shire. We pay our respects to the customs, traditions and stewardship of the land by the elders and people of these tribes on whose land we meet today. Seeing as we're all present, there are no apologies. Are there any notices of disclosure of interest by councillors or officers? None. Thank you very much. Confirmation of the previous minutes, that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on the 15th of August 2023, as previously circulated to councillors, be confirmed. Moved Councillor Keogh, seconded Councillor Ferrari. All those in favour? Carried. Is there any business arising? No, thank you. Members of the community are encouraged to participate in public ordinary council meetings by asking questions or presenting a submission. This can be done by attending in person or by submitting in writing prior to 12 noon on the day of the meeting, online through Council's website, or by mail or hand delivered. If a question or submission is submitted in writing, this will be read by the chair during public participation, stating the person's name and township. Question time will be held first, followed by public submissions. 30 minutes is allowed for a total period for public participation. Time extensions may be allowed at the discretion of the chair, subject to the provisions of governance rules. A person may ask a maximum of 2 questions at any one meeting. The chair will allocate a maximum of 5 minutes to each person who wishes to address council or ask questions. The chair, councillors or council officers to whom a question is referred may immediately answer the question or take the question on notice for answering at a later date. There will be no discussion or debate with public attendees. However, councillors may ask questions of the attendee for clarification. As there were no questions or submissions received before the meeting. Is there any questions or submissions from the gallery this evening? No. Thank you. Item 10, Ms. Bramwell, item for noting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The item for noting is giving you information for the month of July, and actually for the customer action requests and all the contact with the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bramwell. Officer recommendation that council notes this report. Moved Councillor Keogh, seconded Councillor Ferrari. All those in favour? Carried. 10.2, Mayoral Interstate Travel. Mr. Nolan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is really just for the purposes of transparency to inform the community that the Mayor will be travelling interstate between the September and October council meetings, and I recommend the council notes this report.
Thank you, Mr. Nolan. Moved Councillor Clark, seconded Councillor Vance. All those in favour? Carried. Councillor activity reports. All our meetings and community involvement during the month of August. Council notes this report. Moved Councillor Keogh, seconded Councillor Ferrari. All those in favour? Carried. And the Assembly of Councillors. During the month, council notes this report. Moved Councillor Keogh.
Yeah.
Seconded Councillor Vance. All those in favour? Carried. Item 13.1, Asset and Development Services, Heavy Vehicle Approved Roads. Mr. Gowan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report seeks council support to pre-approve heavy vehicle access on selected council managed roads. The previously approved B-double roads within the Pyrenees Shire are the Eurambine-Streatham Road, the Wandoo-Streatham Road, the Beaufort-Carnham Road, between Carnham-Streatham Road to Ballarat-Carnham Road, and the Avoca-Bialaba Road, only between the Sunraysia Highway to the hay processor, approximately a kilometre to the north, and the Darlington-Caramballic Road. These equate to approximately 50 kilometres of pre-approved roads. Over the last 3 years, detailed investigations have been completed on bridges and pavements, including condition inspections, and structural reports are either funded through operational budgets or external grant funding. These have provided additional information to inform potential changes to the gazetted B-double network, as well as the performance-based standards, levels 1 and 2A networks within the Pyrenees Shire Council. The number of approved heavy vehicle permits between July 2020 and June 2023 was 775 permits. This is very resource intensive for council staff and for external bodies. And there's some details of what roads had been applied for within the report. There are over 300 different heavy vehicle configurations, which are mainly grouped into 4 classes of freight heavy vehicles. These 4 classes are general access, class 1, class 2, and class 3. The general access vehicles don't require heavy vehicle permits due to their size and include vehicles like rigid trucks, semi-trailers, and truck and dog combinations. Class 1 vehicles include special purpose vehicles like cranes, drill rigs, graders, and fire trucks. They also include agricultural vehicles like headers, tractors, and also oversized and overmassed vehicles like low loaders and platform trailers. Class 2 vehicles include freight vehicles, B-doubles and larger, performance-based standard vehicles, larger buses, and vehicles exceeding 4.3 metres in height. And class 3 vehicles are vehicles that don't fit into the mass or dimension of class 2 vehicles. For each of the three classes and subclasses of heavy vehicles, there are gazetted road classification maps that can be viewed on the Vic Roads website, and there's links to that website within the report. The Vic Roads heavy vehicle configuration maps that this report seeks support for gazettal changes to include Class 2 B doubles, Class 2 HML, Class 2 GHMS B double, Class 2 GHMS rigid and semi, PBS Class 1 combinations and PBS Class 2 combinations. The changes are summarised within the attached roads map of the Shire, with the previous three double approved roads in green and the proposed additions to the gazetted networks shown in orange. And for the audience, if there are some maps available of that you can help yourself to, if you'd like to have a look. The roads that council officers are seeking council to consider gazettal include the Eurambine-Streatham Road, the Mount William Road between the Eurambine-Streatham Road and West Boundary Road, the Carnham-Streatham Road between Mount William Road to Beaufort-Carnham Road, the Beaufort-Carnham Road between the Carnham-Streatham Road to the Ballarat-Carnham Road, the Linton-Carnham Road between the Ballarat-Carnham Road to the Smythe-Snake Valley Road, the Smythe-Snake Valley Road, the Raglan-Elmhurst Road, Mainly Road, King Street and Albert Street, the Denali-Avoca Road, Homebush Road and North Street, Avoca, the Moonabel-Natayalik Road. There's also some collector roads that council officers are suggesting that should be pre-approved, including the Vite-Skipton Road, the Darlington-Caramballick Road, the Joel Road and the Collins-Eversley Road. And there is one local access road that is being asked to be considered, which is the Geelong Road, which is between the Eurambine-Streatham Road to the Shire boundary. Freight and heavy vehicle access to council's road network supports key industries and businesses within the Pyrenees Shire Council. And it's the officer recommendation that council supports the gazetting of all the roads detailed in this report into the B double, HML, GHMS B double, GHMS rigid and semi, PBS 1 and PBS 2A heavy vehicle networks, which supports up to 68.5 tonne PBS B double. And that council supports council officers to continue to seek funding for bridges and roads to further expand council's heavy vehicle network.
Thank you, Mr. Gowans. Councillors moved, Councillor Keogh, seconded Councillor Ferrari. Any discussion, please, councillors?
No, that I just think it is a move that we've had to make to be able to support our primary production industries and other industries to make it a lot easier to use the network. And as was mentioned in the report too, to be able to lobby for more funding to be able to improve that local road network. And so therefore it's a necessary move, but thank you for all the details too and the maps, Doug, because I think that shows clearly how important that network is and where there are weaknesses that we need to still work on. Thank you.
Councillor Vance.
Yeah, just a question to our engineer. The Landsborough Stall Road is one that concerns me greatly, purely because of the receival site at Landsborough West. I realise that transports have access along the Joel South Road through to Crowlands, but there is quite a deal of traffic on that Ararat St Arnaud Road, and I'm sure that it'd be a good move if we could get some funding towards the bridge that is restricting use. I gather it's the bridge right in Landsborough, is it, Mr. Gowans?
Through Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Vance, for your question. There are a number of bridges that cause us concern, but particularly on that road, you're correct, it's the one closest to Landsborough. And in fact, council officers are seeking to bring a further report to council specifically to bring a report on load limited bridges, which will also highlight potential bridges that need to be upgraded in order to gazette these routes. It's not to suggest that trucks can't use those routes without gazettal. It just means it needs to go through a permit process to assess each of the users of that road. Yes, there's some administration that would need to be undertaken, but until we upgrade the bridges, that limitation would exist.
Thank you.
Mr. Gowan's just comment, when I was looking through the report, I noticed that 42 permits were requested for North Street in Avoca and 32 for Homebush Road. Not exactly sure where those 10 trucks got to, but that's very close to my house. So,
Mr. Mayor, it may have been in relation to the construction works that might have been occurring either at the rail station site or footpath works, but there also could be a discrepancy there to suggest that North Street vehicles might be continuing to travel onto Homebush Road.
thank you, Mr. Gowan. Councillors,
Mr. Mayor,
yes,
Councillor
Councillor.
Clark.
Councillor Clark, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to add to Councillor Keogh's comments. I think it's really good to see that over the 3-year period, we've tripled the amount of roads that we've got accessible. And I think it's a good news message. We actually should get back to the federal government, particularly who give us some of the money for roads to recovery, that we're on the case doing the things that they want us to do as well.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillors, we have a recommendation before us. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Neighbourhood safer places, Barclay Hall designation. Mr. Gowans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is for Council to consider adopting an additional neighbourhood safer place of last resort at the Barclay Hall site, and to note the previously identified places of last resort. A neighbourhood safer place is a space that is a place of last resort for individuals to access and shelter in during a fire event affecting their neighbourhood without the need to take a high-risk journey beyond their neighbourhood. It's also a place that eliminates direct exposure to flames from a fire front and the management of radiant heat to survivable levels. And the neighbourhood safer place should only be accessed when personal bushfire survival plans cannot be implemented or have failed. A neighbourhood safer place does not guarantee the survival of those who assemble there, but provides a more likely survivable area than surrounding environments. In a Neighbourhood Safer Places assessment report presented to Council in September 22, the Country Fire Authority assessed additional sites at Bakery Park Amphitheatre, Barclay Hall, Crollins Hall and the Raglan Recreation Reserve. All of these sites were deemed non-compliant, but were indicated that they could reach compliance with prescribed works. 3 of these sites, excluding Barclay Hall, required agreements with multiple private landholders to achieve compliance. This is difficult to achieve due to the requirement for a major time investment without the guarantee of reaching agreement with all landowners. And this can be issues with the fact that some paddocks might be being used for cropping during the fire season and therefore can't meet the minimum requirement for maintaining fuels at a certain level. Council officers have conducted a review of each of the current designated neighbourhood safer places, of which there are 9 at the following locations: the Lexington Tollbar Park, Walborough Recreation Reserve, at Beaufort at the Waterspoon Park, Snake Valley at St Bridget's Church Reserve, at Avoca in the median strip High Street between Russell and Cambridge Streets, Moonabel at the Recreation Reserve, Nannyalloc at the Recreation Reserve, Redbank at the Recreation Reserve, and Landsborough at the Recreation Reserve. Since the report presented to Council in September 22, and after further investigations of the site in the locality of Barclay, Council officers have undertaken steps to complete the process of prescribing the Barclay Hall site as a neighbourhood safer place of last resort. In an emergency, access will need to be managed to ensure compliance with the nominated internal area of the hall, which is used as a neighbourhood safer place. The reason why this has come to council is that there is only a single property owner that we needed to negotiate with to get the outcome, and we were able to do that. In conclusion, neighbourhood safer places provide a place of last resort in a bushfire emergency. They should be carefully considered in their designation, as they can be misinterpreted as being an alternative to leaving early in a fire emergency. Therefore, it's the officer recommendation that council notes the outcome of the Pyrenees Shire Council's neighbourhood safer places place of last resorts assessment conducted by the Country Fire Authority, and publishes the list of previously prescribed NSPs on council's website. That council designate Barclay Hall as a neighbourhood safer place of last resort. That council commence the gazettal process for designating a new neighbourhood safer place of last resort at Barclay Hall, and commit to the required budget increase to ensure prescribed works are undertaken. And that council continue to monitor the possibility for a neighbourhood safer place of last resort in the localities of Amphitheatre, Crowlands and Raglan.
Thank you, Mr. Gowans. Councillors, we have a recommendation before us. Moved
Happy
Councillor
to move,
Clark,
Mr Chair.
second Councillor Vance. Any discussion, councillors? No?
Only to say, Mr Mayor, that the Barclay community will be chuffed over this decision, I feel. They've been chiselling away for quite a long time, and with the improvements at the hall, it's certainly one that'll go over very favourably. Happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Vance. All those in favour? Carried. Corporate and Community Services, carryover of funds 2023 to 2024. Ms Bramwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report sets out those items of income and expenditure that are required to be carried forward to the 2023-24. My apologies. I'll start again. This report sets out the items of income and expenditure that need to be carried forward to the 2023-24 budget from the previous financial year, due to grants being received in advance or project activity spanning multiple financial years, and as such, unfinished as at the 30th of June 2023. Each year, following the completion of Council's annual statement, a process is undertaken whereby information is reported to Council relating to untied grants received during the previous financial year that relate to this financial year, projects that continue to be works in progress as at the end of the financial year and require funding to be carried forward, the conditions associated with requests for money to be carried over from the previous year is that the organisation must have a surplus of funds at the end of the financial year, and projects must have a surplus of funds before a carryover can be approved. Carryover funds requested are supported by surplus funds in the current budget, in the previous budget. A reconciliation at the 30th of June was carried out to ensure that the list of carryovers is supported by surplus funds and the financial position of Council remains within the parameters of the financial plan. The carryovers actually include 23 items and include the Commonwealth Financial Assistance grants. And the officer's recommendation is that Council approves the addition of 8.932 million to the 2023-24 budget to fund the attached list of carryovers, noting that 6.67 million of that amount relates to early payment of the Commonwealth Financial Assistance grants payments. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Bramwell. We have a recommendation, councillors. Moved Councillor Vance, seconded Councillor Keogh. Councillor Vance? No. No discussion, councillors. All those in favour? Carried. Authorised officers, Ms Bramwell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report is to seek Council's adoption of updated instruments of appointment and authorisation that are required to authorise councils, authorised officers under the Local Government Acts 1989 and 2020 and various other acts and regulations. To legally allow officers to enforce provisions of legislation, council must review its instruments of appointment and authorisation as and when required to maintain their currency. The instruments are updated either when changes occur within the organisation or when officers appointed change roles or leave the organisation. Regardless of individual changes, council officers review instruments annually to maintain currency and the ability of officers to fulfil all legislated functions. A review was conducted in early September 2023, and the 3 instruments of appointment and authorisation put forward as part of this report are now put forward for adoption. That's the S11, which is a general instrument, S11A, which is an instrument relating to the Planning and Environment Act, and S11B, which is an instrument referring to the Environment Protection Act. And it's officers' recommendation that council, in the exercise of the powers conferred by Section 224 of the Local Government Act 1989 and the other legislation referred to in the attached instruments, considers and adopts the instruments as detailed in the report, and that members of council staff referred to in the instruments be appointed and authorised as set out in the instruments. Authorises the creation of individual instruments of appointment and authorisation for individuals officers in accordance with those overarching documents. And the instruments come into force immediately. The common seal of council is fixed to the instruments and remain in force until council determines to vary or revoke them, and the instruments be sealed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Bramwell. Councillors, we have a recommendation. Moved Councillor Clark, seconded Councillor Ferrari. Any discussion, councillors? No. All those in favour? Carried. Road naming, Pear Tree Lane. Ms Bramwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek adoption of a unique road name for an unnamed road, which currently has properties using it as primary access and is now included in the public road register. The proposed name for this road is Pear Tree Lane. It's in Erseldon. This road services 4 rural properties, one of which has a residence. It leaves the Western Highway and crosses the railway line to the north, and then heads east across to a government road alignment ending at the City of Ballarat Shire boundary. The unnamed road has been identified as part of an update of Council's public road register and ongoing road maintenance requests along it. All roads require a name for clear identification of the asset and the addressing of the properties being accessed from them for safety purposes. Public consultation was undertaken seeking alternative names, and a final letter went out to all landholders, finally offering them the opportunity to object to the proposed name of Pear Tree Lane. And after the statutory consultation period, no objections were received. The name actually was suggested by a resident who said that the bend where the Shire Road ends is known as Pear Tree Bend because of 5 or 6 old pear trees that grow there. And so that's why it was, the name was put forward as an option. It is therefore the officer's recommendation that council adopts Pear Tree Lane as the road name for the road currently unnamed between the Western Highway and the end of government road alignment on the southern edge of lot 2 PS 708 449. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Bramwell. Councillors, we have a recommendation before us. Moved Councillor Clark, seconded Councillor Ferrari. Any discussion, councillors? Yes, Councillor Clark.
Mr. Mayor, just to say that I think it's a really good outcome for the residents down there. There's only one at the moment, but there'll be another one very soon. There's building a house and that down there. So, yeah, good bit of work, and I think they appreciate the bit of work council's done on their road as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Just a question. Does the road end at the boundary of the Ballarat Shire, or does it continue into Ballarat?
I think it ends at the Western Highway, at the bottom end. And then it joins what is called a government road. So it's just a small piece, I think.
There's a government road extension
Yeah.
into the city of Ballarat.
Is it? Okay.
The part that we are naming does not extend into the Ballarat
No,
Shire.
but there is a continuation of the road.
Yes, there is.
Okay. Thank you. Councillors, we have a recommendation. All those in favour? Carried. Adoption of the 2022-23 financial statements and 2022-23 performance statement. Ms Bramwell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present the 2022-23 financial statements and performance statement to Council for adoption in principle, and the authorisation of two councillors, being the council and members of the Audit and Risk Committee, to sign the audited statements before being submitted to the Auditor General for certification. The Local Government Act 2020 requires that the council complete the following at the end of each financial year with respect to producing an annual report, and those are the annual report and the financial statements and report of operations that must be included in the annual report. The 2022-23 financial statements and performance statements were prepared in accordance with the requirements of the Act, Local Government Planning and Reporting Regulations and the Australian Accounting Standards. In accordance with Council's governance protocols, the reports will be presented to Council's Audit and Risk Committee next week for review and recommendation for adoption in principle and authorisation of two councillors. The significant factor impacting the financial statements this year was the revaluation of council assets, being impairment of assets as a result of the October 2022 floods, revaluation of assets based on costs increasing significantly since the revaluation, and receipt of the 2023-24 financial assistance grants from the Commonwealth Government in the previous financial year. Council's cash position from the adopted budget did improve by 0.271 million. Compared to the amended budget, the position improved by just over 4 million. The improvement is contributed to the amount of grant funding through Roads to Recovery, LRCIP programs and grant funds received in advance for the flood event, which has improved our cash position. Council has spent more on grant funding rather than council funds. Thus, this has improved the financial sustainability of the council. And the officer recommends that council adopts in principle and submits the 2022-23 financial statements as an error there in the recommendation, and performance statement to the Auditor General for certification subject to recommendation of the Audit and Risk Committee, and authorises Council's Audit and Risk Committee representatives, Councillor Ferrari and Councillor Vance, to certify the 2022-23 financial and performance statements in their final form after any changes recommended or agreed to by the auditor have been made. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Bramwell. Councillors, we have a recommendation. Moved.
Happy to move.
Councillor Vance, seconded Councillor Keogh. Any discussion, councillors? No. All those in favour? Carried. Service reviews 2023. Ms Bramwell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report seeks council approval of a new service review plan for 2023-2026. The council has a strong commitment to continuously plan, review and improve its services. In line with the service planning principles included within the Local Government Act 2020, council must ensure that community expectations and standards are met in a cost-effective manner and that service outcomes are aligned to council's long-term strategic objects and plans. Service reviews also strive to relieve increasing financial pressures and the widening gap between revenue and expenditure by ensuring that council focuses on its primary deliverables whilst continuing to meet community expectations in being environmentally and socially responsible and providing a wide range of quality services. Over the 2021 to 2023 period, service reviews were conducted on the Avoca Community Car, Beaufort Caravan Park, the future of aged care service delivery, and 2 of the business units within the Corporate Services Directorate. The balance of the previously endorsed programme has been suspended, and recent discussion within the executive leadership team identified greater priorities than those outstanding, and it is proposed that Council approve the following amended programme for coming years. And they include a revisit of the former reviews of frontline services to identify potential improvements in service delivery, an aquatic facilities management review to focus on the long-term strategy around the needs of the community and the life cycle of existing facilities, waste management to focus on continuing delivery of the state government's circular economy intentions, early years in the context of the state government's early years reform programme, and in 2025-26 to end this current programme, Council's caravan parks. Thank you. Oh, sorry, I haven't done it. It's officer's recommendation, sorry. The Council receives the information relating to the service reviews as detailed in the report, and approves the amended service review programme for 2023 to 2026 as listed in the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Bramwell. Councillors, we have a recommendation before us. Moved. Councillor Clark. Seconded, Councillor Ferrari. Any discussion, councillors? Councillor Clark.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, just to highlight that apart from the frontline services where obviously we've always got work to do, the other areas are all areas where we've got some significant challenges for council, both in terms of aquatic facilities, what we need to provide in the future and the age of what we have, and with waste management in early years, particularly in the context of what the state's changing in regulation. And I think also with caravan parks in terms of keeping them as a viable part of our offering, and particularly in a tourism sense, but in a broader community facility sense. So, yeah, most appropriate that we pick these items. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Any other councillors? All those in favour? Carried. Annual report, Community Assets Committees. Ms Bramwell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report is to provide an annual report of the activities of community asset committees during the previous financial year to council. Section 65 of the Local Government Act 2020 allows council to establish community asset committees for the purpose of managing community assets in the municipal district. Council has appointed 6 community asset committees, with the newest committee being appointed in March 2023 for the Lexington Community Hub. And those committees are for the Beaufort Community Bank Complex, Brewster Hall, Lansbury Community Precinct, Snake Valley Community Hall, Walborough Community Hub, and as I've just said, Lexington Community Hub. And the Section 47 of the Act provides for the Chief Executive Officer to delegate powers, duties and functions to those committees, and also requires an annual report to be submitted to Council. This report is the 3rd annual report on the activities and performance of its annual community asset committees. And a summary of committee activities was provided both below in the report itself and in a separate document provided to Council under separate cover. COVID-19 had significant impacts on the events and activities at the community facilities over the last few years, and these sort of continued into the last financial year. I won't go into full detail of the report from each of the committees. I will take those as read. But there are some work to be done in supporting some of our committees who are at risk of financial unsustainability. So the greatest risks from this report are the financial sustainability of our committees and the impact upon our community's mental health, resulting from a lack of sporting and social activities because of ongoing COVID-19 restrictions. Although the restrictions are no longer there, we still have the lasting effects. And the officer's recommendation is that Council notes this report and its attachments and writes to each of the asset committees recognising their volunteer contribution to the maintenance and management of the assets. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Bramwell. Moved councillor Keogh, seconded councillor Clark. Any discussion?
No discussion, just a thank you to all those committees that that look after those assets that we've got. We're very grateful for the volunteer time and effort that they put in.
Any other discussion, councillors? No. All those in favour? Carried. Memberships, Greater Ballarat Alliance of Councils, Mr Nolan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is for council to receive an update on the activities of the Greater Ballarat Alliance of Councils, otherwise known as GBAC, and to endorse the ongoing participation. GBAC is a newly formed group of 6 rural and regional councils located in and around Ballarat. It's been established to act as a united voice for member councils to tackle common issues and secure a fair share of Victorian and Commonwealth Government funding for the Greater Ballarat region. The 6 participating councils are the City of Ballarat, Central Goldfields Shire, Golden Plains Shire Council, Hepburn Shire Council, Mirrabul Shire Council and Pyrenees. The Federal Minister for Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development and Local Government, Catherine King, launched GBAC at an event in Creswick just on the 8th of September. And GBAC replaces the previous regional partnership known as Central Highlands Councils Victoria. The principal purpose of GBAC is to provide a united voice, to provide advocacy, to provide strategy, to have input into policy and to provide leadership. And the 3 priority pillars of advocacy for GBAC are around transport, digital coverage and access, and enabling growth. And the leadership for the group is provided by the mayors and CEOs of the 6 councillors, and Councillor Des Hudson, Mayor of the City of Ballarat, has been elected as Chair of GBAC. Mr Mayor, the membership comes at a cost because the group actually requires secretarial services to be able to undertake the work, and the membership for Pyrenees is approximately $13,000 a year. Mr Mayor, given the importance of the work that's done by this group and the opportunity to leverage of a partnership and which provides greater access to both Commonwealth and state politicians and decision makers, it's considered value for money for Pyrenees, and the recommendation is that council endorses the participation with GBAC with the Greater Ballarat Alliance of Councils.
Thank you, Mr Nolan. We have a recommendation, councillors. Moved councillor Clark, seconded councillor Ferrari. Any discussion, councillors? No. All those in favour? Carried. Petition, put the Brolgas ahead of wind turbines. Mr Nolan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide council with the details of a petition received by the communities of, or presented to council and received by councillors at a community cuppa event recently held at Brewster. Council received the petition from the communities of Trawalla and Brewster as a voice to the Planning Minister, Honourable Sonia Kilkenny, that the community stand firm and say yes to sustainable protection of Brolga in the Pyrenees Shire and no to this wind farm. The petition received contained 92 signatories and was accompanied with information relating to Brolga's and RE Futures planning application for a wind farm. Mr Mayor, Council's governance rules provide provisions that Council not make a decision in respect of merits of a petition until it has had the opportunity to consider the petition And it's normal practice for council to seek a report to be prepared by the relevant officer for a subsequent meeting addressing the merits of the issues contained in the petition. However, this petition does not seek any specific action by council, but rather it seeks to draw attention of the issuer to the Victorian Planning Minister, who is the decision maker in respect of the planning matter involving the wind farm. It's also worth noting, Mr Mayor, that the council have made previous decision to write to the Planning Minister to bring to the Minister's attention concerns that the community have previously brought to council's attention in respect of the Brolga and in relation to the proposed wind farm. And to that extent, Mr Mayor, council has written to the Planning Minister bringing that to the Minister's attention. Given that the petition is essentially a voice to the Planning Minister and is not seeking anything specific from council, and in support and recognition of the community's efforts, the recommendation, Mr Mayor, is that council receives the petition, that council continues to advocate on behalf of the community in respect of the Brewster Wind Farm planning application and the protection of Brolgas, and that council writes to the Minister for Planning, providing a copy of the petition that has been presented to council.
Thank you, Mr Nolan. Councillors, we have a recommendation. Moved Councillor Ferrari, seconded Councillor Keogh. Councillor Ferrari, no. Councillor Keogh.
Just that the detail on that in the petition and the information that the community put together to protect the Brolga was quite extensive and a lot of commitment from them. So that was definitely evident when we met with that group.
Thank you, Councillor Keogh. Any further discussion, councillors? Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Just a question to Mr Nolan. I'm out of view that petition. I'm sorry about that. Is it, if the petition isn't to us, it actually is to the Planning Minister, I think it would be more appropriate that we'd actually note it rather than receive it, because it's not actually our petition. A petition particularly to the, as you say, asking the Pyrenees Shire to do something, but I'd seek your advice on that, please, Mr CEO.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Whilst the petition's not actually specifically for council to deal with, council has effectively received it, and I don't see any problem in council receiving it, even though it's not for council to act. And you know, should council at the end of the day, it's council, it's your resolution, so you can note it, but I don't see any problem in receiving it, even though the petition is not for council to act.
Thank you for that clarification. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Ms Bramwell.
Just further, thank you,
Microphone.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Clark, just to further to the Mr Nolan's answer there, under the Public Records Act, once a document is received by council, it becomes part of the public record and retained by council, even if it was addressed to somebody else. And therefore, I think received is probably the correct terminology in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Bramwell. Thumbs up, Councillor Clark. I'd like to take this opportunity to once again thank the community of Toowoomba and Brewster for the work that they've done, not only in providing this petition, but in other times, providing council with valuable information for us to note, pass on to the Minister, and improve our own personal knowledge of Brolgas and the Brolga sites. So again, my thanks and the thanks of council to the community for all that work that they've done. Councillors, all those in favour? Carried. Project update. Mr Nolan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, the purpose of this report is really to bring to council's attention the progress in respect of a number of the projects that are underway or recently completed. The information's there in the report. They've proposed to sort of go into the detail, but a recommendation is that council notes the report and that council recognises the achievement of staff and contractors involved in the direct delivery of the recently completed projects, and that council seeks to facilitate official openings of relevant completed projects in conjunction with the various funding partners.
Thank you, Mr. Noel. Councillors, we have a recommendation. Councillor, moved Councillor Keogh, seconded Councillor Clark. Councillor Keogh.
Just one comment, it's amazing the different types of projects that are on the go at the moment, and it's heartening to see that many of these are underway or nearly completed.
Any further discussion? Councillor Clark?
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question more than a comment. It's good to see that the crop gun is on its concrete slab back in the park. Do we have any sense of when we might be able to make some progress on funding for the roof?
For the crops gun?
Yes.
Mr. Gowns.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Clark, for your question. At this stage, the slab and fence were funded directly by the RSL. It's my understanding they do have some funds available. I'm not sure what the extent they have. I think there probably would be a requirement to seek some grant funding if a roof shelter was to proceed as part of the stage 2. However, there is some views that have been expressed by some of the RSL members that that they're reasonably happy with how the gun is in the park. So we are just waiting on further confirmation if there's a united view that the shelter roof is definitely to go ahead. However, any parts of the gun that were potentially subject to short-term weather damage have actually been temporarily removed, and that includes the seat to the gun, and ultimately the gun was exposed to the elements for effectively 100 years, and is now protected by the restoration work. So there's not an urgency from a deterioration point of view. However, ultimately it's with the RSL. However, we are still working on plans for the detailing of the roof structure if it were to go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Gowns. I will advise council that at a recent legacy function I attended in Ararat, RSL member came up to me and thanked council for all the efforts that we have put in to getting the gun to where it is at the present time. And in our discussion, I mentioned about the shelter, and his comment was, we're not quite sure about the shelter yet, so just hold off until the RSL makes a decision. So they'll come back to us, I'm sure. Okay, we have a recommendation, councillors, before us. All those in favour? Carried. Councillor reports and general business. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of ones from me. Firstly, congratulations to all the teams within the Shire that made it in the Central Highlands finals this year. I don't think any of us got through to the end, but we certainly at least had one from each of our 4 towns, which was lovely. Again, good to see the flood works continuing to happen around the Shire. Also, probably the major one in my patch this last month has been there was quite a significant public meeting organised in Warburg around about 2 weeks ago around the recognition and settlement agreement between the state and Bringy Gadget on behalf of the local governments. And of course, this recognition and settlement agreement only takes in a very small slice on the very western side of council. I think it's probably important to note that there's quite a bit of talk about this, but it's certainly not something that binds council in any way. It is interesting that there was a number of state politicians that spoke about that, but certainly my understanding is that at the state level, all the major parties, and I think all the minor parties as well, are very supportive of this process, effectively, in what's happening. And local government is part of that process, but we get the chance to make our own decisions. So I think we'll see how that evolves, Mr. Mayor, in the context of things. And I understand there's some discussion. There may be future meetings coming up from that group as well. I just have one question for Mr. Gowers, and I'm happy to wait to general business for that one. Probably the best. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Clark. Councillor Vance. Are you on mute, councillor Vance?
That helps when you push the button, doesn't it?
It certainly does.
Along with other councillors, had the opportunity to go to Lake Goldsmith, and we had quite a vibrant cuppa at Lake Goldsmith, quite a deal of discussion, which is good, very healthy when your constituents are airing their opinions on how council should operate in some cases. And it was one of the longer cuppas that I've been to. I know I didn't get home till Landsborough till about 9 o'clock that particular evening, and thoroughly enjoyed it. Hopefully we resolved a few problems. Also, the Brewster Cuppa, it was quite informative also. I was very disappointed that I wasn't able to get to the inspection day where you were looking at the Brolga sites, but it certainly concerns me that our current state government is probably fairly quiet on this one. It'll be interesting to see what does come up. It's been left up to the proponents to come up with some solutions, and sometimes that's like putting the fox in charge of the chickens, I believe. But anyway, we will find out as time goes by, I guess. I attended the Moonabel Public Hall committee, and they've got quite a vibrant little group going there. They're very happy with the new fence around their hall and the improvements that have been made. And I'd say the future of the hall committee is quite strong for the next 4 years anyway. I attended a forum and AGM for timber towns in Portland at the end of the month. Had the privilege of going out and seeing some harvesting happening in the blue gum forest, where the timber found its way from the tree, chopped down, carried to the chipper, debarked, certainly all the leaves and everything were stripped off. What a magnificent machine it was, and it produced the chips straight into the transport, ready to go through to the port, all in one operation. But unfortunately for them, they got about halfway through the coop they were working on, and all of a sudden the ships stopped arriving at the port. So they can only operate whilst the ships are removing the valuable chips off to Japan and sending the chips over there, and then returning it as paper or paper pulp back to Australia at the end of the process. But it's obvious that the amount of ships operating on the waters at the moment are slowing down. We then had the privilege of going to two mills where the amount of timber coming through is astronomical, and the operation is also the same. Everything is now computer operated. There's not one physical worker out there, I don't think, doing anything, even greasing and sharpening saws. Everything's done with computers. It was a real eye-opener, and the future of the pine plantations is very strong, obviously, but the hardwood timber side is another story in Victoria. On the Thursday, we had an AGM, and Joel Fitzgibbon, a former cabinet minister, was the guest speaker, and he's not quite so sure that the closing down of the hardwood industry in Victoria, especially in Gippsland and up into the northeast, is the smartest move that the Victorian government has made. Purely when you see the amount of damage that's done by bushfires, the weeds that are not being looked after, vermin, and all this is really going to have to be addressed into the future. So a complete closure is not necessarily going to be the way. It'll be a matter of watching this space, I think, as time goes by. That pretty well covers my lot. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Vance. Councillor Keogh.
Just before I do go, Mr. Mayor, I believe that Ms. Stevens addressed council at a briefing this afternoon. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, well, that's good.
And she missed it.
Yeah, well, that's good also. But just to at the AGM, I stood down from the position of the board.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Vance.
Thank you.
Councillor Keogh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Councillor Vance alluded to, we met with the beautiful Brewster crew last week, and again to go back to a couple of meetings we've had with them over the last few months to understand just how much effort has been put into protecting the Brolga community there, which is quite extensive when you think about, and we saw some of the footage of these beautiful Brolga and their beautiful hatchlings and that from this latest season. They've collected a great deal of evidence of critical information. So for those to do that shows their love of the beautiful area that they live in, and them wanting to protect that population in that area of our shire greatly. So also the fact we were meeting in the beautiful Brewster Hall, such a beautiful hall if other residents have not been there, and so well maintained. And tonight we looked at some of those asset committees. It takes our asset committees across the shire to protect these amazing and very historically valuable assets, as well as important community areas and areas of last resort, those sorts of things. A lot of these halls and those areas do create for our community. So huge thanks to everyone out there that gives so much of their time. Another item tonight that related to roads was also very welcomed, as gazetting more of those roads. These will start to become busier. Of course, it's probably spray trucks and things at the moment, but more so in the months ahead as the crops mature with the good weather they've had for crops in the coming months. So that was very providential. This last week, Kathy and I and Doug also had a MEMSI meeting. Again, agencies are preparing for the summer season ahead. It will be an interesting one. It will be one that we'll have to be very much prepared for, and also to protect residents and visitors to our shire for the events scheduled in the warmer months across the shire, from smaller events to larger events. So that took up a lot of that meeting time. Also on that, please do, I urge residents, and I know neighbours are assisting neighbours, and many people are already doing this and being incredibly responsible, but please take precautionary actions to safeguard your property, and more importantly, your family and your friends, your loved ones, and your neighbours, to protect them and keep them safe as we do prepare for this coming fire season. Now's a really good time to start doing that, because there might be quite a lot of preparation this season, but please do take those precautions. And if you need support or advice on what to do, please contact council or check out our social media sites Also, CFA has some fantastic information to support residents to be able to do that. Finally, also, I'm sounding a bit dire tonight, but with the warmer weather, we've already had 3 close calls with snakes in our property. So please be vigilant around long grass and just working out around properties or around your house. And please also be aware that children are aware of appropriate snake safety. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Keogh. Councillor Ferrari.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also attended the Brewster Cuppa. It's fantastic, and I don't think I've been in that hall for a very long time, but it's a lovely little hall down there. It's kept very nice and neat, so that's fantastic. I did mention in my column last week about the secondary college Deb ball, but I can't help but mention it again that I attended and had some of the Debs presented to myself and my partner. There was 18 in all, and they were absolutely fantastic. All looked beautiful, and their partners were fantastic. They presented well. It was just such a great evening, and it went off really, really well. And congratulations to all those Debs, and also to all those involved in the organisation and setting up of that, because the hall looked fantastic and the night just went so smoothly. So, and Councillor Keogh was one of those. So well done. That was a fantastic evening. Councillor Keogh stole some of my thunder, but I was just going to mention as well, with the warmer weather coming up and the grass growing, I just urge residents to do their slashing and clean-ups early, get in early and get it done. And if you need to engage someone, get in early so that you make sure it's done before it gets dry. Then it becomes an issue before the fire season. And also I was going to mention about snakes, because I've had a couple of constituents through the week tell me about a couple of close calls they've had while cleaning up and even mowing. So certainly the wrigglers are out and about. So please be very, very careful of the snakes. There's been a lot of progress up in the Beaufort Lake area, up in that area, and we've got the barbecue shelter nearly finished. The jetty is well underway. The cricket nets are all but finished, and the lighting upgrade of the oval will now start. The sporting, the football's finished. So there's a real lot happening up there, and it's a lot of money's worth, but it's just going to make that precinct up there so nice and improve it so much. So what I do is I urge everybody to go up there and make the best use of those facilities and enjoy what we've been doing and what we've achieved up there. I think you'll find it's very impressive. So, and there's more to come with the linear project. And I'd just like to end off with saying congratulations to the Brewster and to all the residents involved in the Put the Brolgers Ahead of the Wind Turbines project. They've been undertaking a significant amount of work already in their own time. And, you know, they're all busy people. So they've gathered a significant amount of really, really important data. So that's just so fantastic. And I note one of the committee members has made the effort to come to the council meeting tonight. So I thank you for your attendance. So keep up the good work in that space. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ferrari. Before I start my report, I am a little remiss. The last report regarding the project report I meant to mention, but got too carried away and closed it down. Well done to all that staff and all the organisation behind getting those projects completed or on their way. There's a lot of effort goes into the initial planning to start something, the approval process through council, and then the work to get it done. And everybody puts in whatever's needed to get it done. And thank you very much to all those concerned. And very good to see it out in the public realm through a report of this nature. And hopefully as many people as possible can actually get to read it. So, Councillor Cuppa Goldsmith, unfortunately was unable to attend that, and it's usually a very interesting meeting, and I do I am sorry that I actually missed it. Had the meeting with the chair of GBAC, Councillor Hudson, and his thoughts on GBAC and what it can attain and how they match with ours. So hopefully that group can move onwards and upwards with regards to regionally around ourselves and the Ballarat region, and we can start to move things along. And finally, Councillor Keogh, I do wish you all the best in your upcoming event in the possible not too distant future. I hope it is either on time or a little early rather than drag on. And I wish you every health and healthy result.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Clark, I believe you had a question.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a question to Mr. Gowans, please. Mr. Gowans, I know we were delayed earlier in the year because it was a very wet start to the late autumn and the winter with grading works, but just could you give us a bit of an update, please, on where we're at with grading works possible across the Shire?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you, Councillor Clark, for your question. According to my latest report, is that grading is almost fully complete. There was 3 small areas of the Shire that were listed in a recent report that we were doing some final grading work in, but the majority of grading had been completed. So yeah, we're about to start on resheets and reseals in the very near future.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillors, we have a urgent business item. Could I have a councillor to move Councillor Keogh that we consider an urgent report? Seconded, Councillor Ferrari. All those in favour? Carried. Item 14.2, changing date for the council statutory meeting 2023. Ms Bramwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report seeks council endorsement to change the date of the 2023 statutory meeting of the Pyrenees Shire Council. At its meeting in December 2022, as part of approving the schedule of meetings for the 2023 calendar year, the scheduled date for the statutory meeting this year was approved as Tuesday, the 14th of November. It is, however, now noted that it is scheduled on the same date as the cuppa and chat session with the Evansford community, following a council briefing on the same day. The cuppa and chat sessions are held monthly to give an opportunity for communities around the Shire to talk informally with their councillors and council senior officers. These sessions generally commence at 5 p.m. and finish between 6:30 and 7. Formerly, the sessions were held at lunchtimes, but were changed to early evening to allow for more time with community members, and has resulted in a greater attendance rate. Scheduling the early evening cuppa and chat session on the same day as the statutory meeting allows insufficient time to effectively hear everything the Evansford community may want to say. And it is therefore proposed that the date of the statutory meeting be changed to accommodate this. Consideration of alternative dates identified that the previous week was the same date as Melbourne Cup public holiday, and therefore council is requested to endorse the change of date for the Pyrenees Shire Council statutory meeting to 6 p.m. on Tuesday, the 31st of October. And the officer recommendation is that council approves the change in date for the Pyrenees Shire Council 2023 statutory meeting to 6 p.m. on Tuesday, the 31st of October 2023, and this will still be held in Lexington, and the public notification of the change in date be provided through local media, website and media release, giving at least 2 weeks notice of the new date. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Bramwell. Moved, Councillor Keogh, seconded, Councillor Ferrari. Any discussion, councillors? All those in favour? Carried. Close of meeting. That a mover that the ordinary council meeting be closed at 7:16 PM. Moved councillor Keogh, seconded councillor Ferrari. All those in favour? Thank you very much, councillors. And to our gallery, thank you very much for your attendance this evening. You've both stayed awake throughout. I think that's an absolutely wonderful attestation to what we've provided for you. Have a lovely evening.